Hi guys, welcome back to another video and to this guitar, the Sire H7. And this guitar has been lent me by Steve to do this video on. And I remember when these first came out and everybody on YouTube was just like, it's the best guitar ever, you know, they couldn't believe how good it was, sort of thing. And don't get me wrong, I didn't just write that off, but I wasn't sort of, you know, blown away by all the constant videos about how good Sires were. So now all that's kind of subsided, I've finally got my hands on one. So I think what we'll do is I'll go over the sort of, you know, rough spec of what you get with this guitar, and then we'll do some quick sound examples. And I am curious to compare it to my Eastman, not because, like, not as a comparison because it's two totally different price point guitars, but as someone who is so used to my Eastman and loves my Eastman so much, you know, does this guitar that is 3 and a bit times less, you know, does it kind of stand up to that sort of thing? So it's not a comparison, but it's more of a curiosity sort of thing. So spec on this guitar then, you can see this one's white, which I don't think I've ever seen listed, to be fair. So I didn't know they did a white and gold one, but quite sort of standard 335 specs really. It is actually a carved top, you know, and carved back. And that's laminated maple top, back and sides. When I saw this thing, kind of when he sent me a photo, I thought it was a flat top to kind of, you know, save some money sort of thing. But no, it is actually a proper carved top sort of thing. Pickups wise, they are Larry Carlton vintage humbuckers. So basically Sire's own. You're not getting like branded pickups, but you'll hear how they sound, and you've heard it in the intro as well. Loads of nice little details on it as well. I'll put some close-ups in now, but these reflector knobs have actually got the gold on rather than the silver. And inside the F-holes, you've got kind of binding in there as well. And then the binding is this, you know, pretty nice looking, what was it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ply binding on the front and back and around the headstock as well. And then single ply binding around the neck. If I can show you this neck, it's spec'd as an ebony fingerboard. But to me, and I don't know how it's coming across on camera. If it's ebony, then it's ebony. That's what it says. But I really think that's rosewood. It looks more like rosewood, or it's slightly lighter ebony. And even the grain is a teeny tiny bit looser than what I would expect from ebony. But either way, it's, you know, it's a really, really nice fingerboard. You are getting medium jumbo frets as well. So, you know, winner for me there. I love the medium jumbo. Now, you probably heard everyone, like I said earlier on YouTube, talking about Sire's rolled edges. And it's something that comes up all the time, the rolled edges. And we'll come back to it later on, but like, they're not as exaggerated as everyone says. They're just comfortable. And the fretwork on this guitar, this is as it came. And I wouldn't say it's a million miles away from my Eastman saying about that guitar earlier. It's very, very, very good. You know, for an out-of-the-box guitar, and at this price point, this is probably the best fretwork I've ever seen on a, you know, what is this, 450 pound guitar? So that is a huge plus, to be fair. Neck-wise, it's kind of like a deep C, and it's 43 millimeters wide at the nut, and that is a bone nut, but if I can show you that, it's a little bit of an ugly nut, a bit like the PRS is, just a big block of bone stuck on the end of the fretboard. It's not kind of, it could look a bit nicer, but it does work. And then for the tuners, you've just got these gold, you know, often these sort of cheaper tuners, they're just described as die-cast tuners. And that's what these are, you know, no brand, kind of Grover copies, if you like. But I haven't had any tuning problems, and they do feel pretty nice to use. It's just they're clearly cheaper, unbranded tuners. I don't think there's anything else to say spec-wise. Weight is £9 on this guitar, so about what you expect for a 335. Not the lightest in the world, but not bad for a 335. You know, you've got a full maple centre block in the middle of this as well, you know, like a 335. So not too bad on the weight. And the pots, I think they're alpha pots, but what we'll do now, I'll get to some quick sound demos, and what I'll do first is I'll show you kind of the taper just on a cleanish sound of what they're like, because they're pretty usable, to be fair. They're more kind of heavy taper towards the bottom rather than completely linear, but they're not too bad. So let me show you how this thing sounds, and we'll do a very quick comparison to the Eastman, and then I'll sort of chat over a bit more about it in just a minute. So there you go. You've heard a little bit about what this thing sounds like, and sound-wise, then just tell me what you thought of the sound, because I'm using a new amplifier, and then the drive was just coming from my Revival drive. So curious to see what you think. It was the line out from a new amp. But speaking about the Eastman thing just for a second, like what the differences between what you're hearing there is for a few things. Like this has got a mahogany neck, the Eastman's got a maple neck. Loads of other little subtle differences as well, like the electronics, blah, blah, blah. But I think one of the main things you're hearing is the difference between potted and unpotted pickups, because they're very, very similar in output. They're both low output PAF kind of inspired pickups, but these have a very kind of focused mid-range. You can hear that they're tuned more, to that mid-range kind of honk. And whereas the unpotted pickups, there's a lot more going on in there, some you can't control, and I prefer that. It's a more harmonic kind of sound. But nonetheless, for stock in-house, no brand pickups, I think they sound very, very good. I really have enjoyed the sound of this guitar. And I just want to touch more on the Sire rolled edge thing a minute, because like I said at the time, everybody was going on about that. And it's to the point where I thought it was going to be super extreme. Like, I've definitely played guitars before where it's rolled so much that you're almost falling off. The rolled edge thing on here is very, very subtle. You know, it goes over the binding here as well. It's just a smooth curve. And it just feels like a nicely finished guitar, you know. You wouldn't necessarily kind of know they were super rolled, but it just feels very, very comfy in your hand. And like I said, these medium jumbos, for me, that's just an absolute win sort of thing. And I can kind of see where the hype's coming from. And it's for the money these cost. Like, if I go back to my shop days for a second and think about, you know, the Inspired by Gibson Epiphone 335s I had about half a dozen of them at one point. You know, various different ones, Sheraton 335. And if someone asked me, you know, Sire or those Epiphones, because those Epiphones weren't bad, you know, they're pretty good. But this Sire is leaps and bounds ahead of, you know, ahead of those Epiphones for sure. And I would say it's ahead of the Chinese Tokai 335 we tried as well. So value for money wise, I know YouTube is a bit weird, especially when you get all the channels all at the same time saying the same thing, and you should question that for sure. But you definitely can't go too far wrong with this guitar. The only thing Steve has changed is, if you might have noticed earlier on, the strap lock here, a lot of the time they are in the middle, and it is on my Eastman as well, right in the middle, which is where it was standard sort of thing. That's my air freshener going off. And the reason why he's moved it is because when you're down here and you kind of, you know, the back of your hand kind of gets stuck on it, and that now is well out the way, and they probably should do that from factory because it looks fine, and then you don't end up with holes you have to fix, and it's, you know, definitely nicer. So if anyone at Sire happens to see this, moving the strap there as standard would be a really nice kind of thoughtful thing to do. But yeah, so I've finally tried one of these Sires, and I like it to the point where I started looking at them, and the black one with the P90s is the one I'd have, because don't get me wrong, you know, my Eastman is still next level, but this isn't a million miles away from it, which is crazy. And I kind of want a semi-hollow with P90s, but I don't want to stretch to another Eastman. Whereas this, the black one, like I said, with the P90s, might be, I don't know, we'll see how the gas kind of cooks on that one. So hopefully you've enjoyed the video, and I will see you again very, very soon, and we'll look at the amplifier you've heard today. Let me know if you thought, bearing in mind it's a line out, no microphones, let me know how it sounded, and I will see you then.